Let's check out another trap and how it functions and its design, its advantages and disadvantages. So let's check it out. Here we have a run-of-the-mill cage trap. It does a good job. Nothing real special about it. It's just cage wire like all the other ones, but it has some unique features. Now this is a very common style trap. Let's take a look at the door. Now this door has two washers. They slide up and down. These washers are important. When the washers are down, they latch the door. When the washers are up, the door can open. So there's the door open, there's the washers. Now it just works off of gravity. There's no springs or anything. And then right here is the catch. So when I swing this up, the door is propped open. That metal rod connects to another metal rod which connects to the pan. Now the advantage of this trap is the bottom of the cage is wire, and the pan that the critter steps on is wire. Now I got a big clump of grass, I'm going to pull that out. Now we can see the pan. Now you might be wondering, well, why is the pan made of wire an advantage? Well, let's check out this trap. That pan is a different material. It also is smaller, and it sits at a steeper angle when the trap is set. This trap is set, and the pan sits at a very shallow angle. And it's the same material, so when Mr. Raccoon or Possum or Skunk comes walking in, they don't really notice the pan here because it's the same material, and because it's not very steep, they're more likely to step on it. And when they step on it, metal rod pulls down, it swings this down, door drops, and the critter's trapped. Now, the critters do not have the cognitive reasoning to slide these washers both up at the same time and push the door open. I have watched raccoons slide one up, then I've watched them slide the other up. But they can't figure out that they have to slide both up at the same time to push the door open. There is a big disadvantage though with this door design. So right now, let's set the trap on the ground. Trap's on the ground, stable ground, it's not going anywhere. But let's say it's on a slight hill and Mr. Raccoon is able to roll the trap a little bit. Well, what happens? The door's partially open now, and Raccoon pushes this washer this way, and he pushes that washer that way, door wide open. Or, let's say trap is set and it's locked, and he rolls it down the hill once, twice. The door comes flopping open, and Raccoon gets away. That's a big disadvantage of this trap. Another disadvantage of this trap is this door is set that door sticks out very far. I don't like that. Sometimes you can't get it very close to the hole that you're trying to trap on. The other disadvantage is because it sticks out so far, it's very easy for the animal to bump this door. Because sometimes raccoons, they paw all over the trap trying to get to the bait. You know, they're reaching in. They might walk on the trap. And if a raccoon steps on this gently, nothing's going to happen. But if he does that, it's going to collapse the door. So the door is kind of a disadvantage. The treadle or the triggering mechanism is an advantage because of its length, its height, and it's the same material as the bottom. I catch a lot of raccoons with these traps. I'm just always sure to anchor it so it can't roll, and I always make sure I get this away from objects so the door can't catch on it. So that is how this trap works. Let's check out a similar trap but different. Here we got one. Here we got two. These are exactly the same design, just different sizes. Now this one's wrapped in duct tape because I use it for squirrels. It's perfectly sized for squirrels. This one's a little bigger. This one's sized more for groundhogs and skunks. You can get a raccoon into it, but it's a little on the small side. And the reality is, this trap comes in the exact same size as that trap. This one has a couple advantages over that trap, and it's got some disadvantages. The way this one functions is, you can see the pan right there. Now when the trap's set, it sits at a steeper angle. It also is a different material. And what I find with the steep angle and the different material, that critters will sometimes step over it to get to the bait that's placed at the back of the trap. Now, you know, if they keep stepping over it and getting to the bait, they'll eventually make a mistake. I mean, you may have to go 3 or 4 days of missing opportunities and them gobbling up the bait, but they'll eventually make a mistake. But where this trap shines is the door. Now, as you can see, this door comes down and shuts at an angle. Then it's got this bar here, and this holds the door shut. So when the animal pushes on the door, that bar pushes against the top of the trap. The door won't open. And then it's got this little catch here. This is kind of like a safety catch. So when the animal gets trapped, that thing drops down. This bar cannot go forward, and it cannot go back, and it locks it. It's very easy to open the door, though. You lift this, push the bar back, hold the door open. This door also uses a spring to help hold this up. And that is another advantage, because if the animal rolls it upside down, it's going to stay locked. Because the spring helps hold it in place, the catch is still here. The trap sits sideways. Everything stays locked. It's a good quality trap. Now this trap design is very common. You can get this in many brands. This happens to be a Safeguard. There's also Tomahawk and Hav-a-Hart. Those are 3 very common brands that all make this style. There's other brands out there. There's no name brands, generic brands. Just this door design comes down an angle with this latching bar, you know, shaped like a square. It comes up. That is very common. The other thing that's very common with this trap is how the door is held up in place. So if we look straight on, there's a little hook here. And a hook that's connected to this rod, which is connected here. Then the rod goes down to the door. When the animal steps on the door, the hook pulls away. So when the trap is set, whoops, this little hook just grabs the door, just holds it like that. And now it's set. And as we know, the animal steps on the pan, door drops. Now, not all the brands use a wire door like this. Some of the brands use a solid piece of sheet metal, which is also an advantage when you're dealing with skunks because they can't see through it. This one happens to have a mesh door. Now, another advantage to this trap and this door design is the door is short, because when it's set, 2/3 of the door are back here under the cage. Only a little tiny bit sticks out. So you can put this very close to a hole, and it's not gonna, I mean, it's just a short distance, so you can put it close to the hole, and the animal is less likely to stand on this and bump this and mess around with it. And it seems to be a little less sensitive than the door on that trap. But this is the standard run-of-the-mill trap that we see. I like them. I use them. I have many of these. I have many more of these in the larger size like that. I just don't happen to have the large ones with me right now. Now let's look at our last cage trap. Now I actually have 2 of them here, or 3 of them actually. I got this one, and I got the long one right there. But we're going to check out this guy. Now I have one door set. There's a door right here. Both doors work identical. Now when you look at this, This door design is basically the same door design as that. This trap uses 4 springs. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 springs. So it's a little more powerful. And you can see that almost 2/3 of the door concealed back here in the cage, and just this part sticking out. But because it uses 4 springs, it makes this door very sturdy. I mean, I'm beating on it, pounding on it, and it won't close because there's a lot of pressure right here where the little catch is. And that keeps the door from flopping around. In fact, because these are power doors, this trap can be mounted upside down, vertically, sideways, any which way you want, and it'll still function perfectly. And let's look inside. Now you can see there's no treadle in here. Nothing for the animal to step on. Instead, we have these looping wires. Now, if you haven't figured out yet, those looping wires are the triggering mechanism. The way this animal trap works is the animal tries to go past the wires. Now, in the wild, animals are used to brushing past leaves and grass and sticks and twigs. So for them to brush past the wires is a common thing. So as they try to push past those wires, the door will go off. So let's see if I can demonstrate without getting my arm caught in there. Here, we'll use this metal rod. So let's pretend this metal rod is the animal, and he's going to try to go through the trap. Well, he can't quite fit through here because he's bigger than this. So he's trying to figure out how to get past the wires, and he brushes past. Oh, the cage went off and he's caught inside. And that's how that functions. Now, this trap can be set in many different ways. Like I said, you can orient it upside down, sideways, vertically, however you want. But one thing I will often do is I will cover the back of the cage with wire, put my bait back here. I cover it with wire because they can get their paws in around this door and steal the bait. If I cover this with wire, they can't get in here and steal the bait. And I will only set one door. Leave this one open, they come in, get the bait, gone. Or if I want to do a pass-through setup, it's very simple. I will set the trap, and I'll show you how I set it here in a moment. Now we have both doors set. And from the animal's perspective, they can walk straight through it, except for those wires are in the way. So, what I will often do is I will mount one end onto a hole, and sometimes I use a little bit of wire to guard the holes, to just provide them with one way in and one way out. Now when the animal tries to come and go, they have to pass through both doors, pass through the triggering mechanism, but the triggering mechanism will not allow them to pass and they get caught. But they can see straight through it, which is brilliant. And there's nothing for them to step over, which is brilliant, which is an awesome little trap. Now, there is downsides to this trap. One downside is it's expensive. They're very high quality, very well made. Another downside of the trap is those wire loops. Small animals pass right through it. I have had small raccoons and small groundhogs and skunks step right through the wire without tripping it. In fact, I can put my hand and arm all the way through the other side of the trap, not set it off. And I can get my hand past the trigger wires there. That is a problem with this trap. We do have modifications we can make to that to increase our effectiveness. And that is a downside to it. Another downside to this trap is it's complicated to set. So let me show you all the steps you have to do to set it. Now the first things first, I'll show you the shorter one. because it might fill up my camera frame a little more easily. So first things first, we're going to set it down. We look through the cage, there's this bar here. That bar has to rest on top of this little bar. So this gets swung up, and then it rests on the little bar right there. I don't know if you can see that. That's the first step we have to do to set the trap. The next step is I have to set the door on one side. So we swing the door up, and then we got a hook. You see the hook, and then there's a stud. Hook goes on the stud. Then we repeat the process over here. Door goes up. Hook goes on the stud. Now the trap is basically set, but we're not done yet. We look through, there's no trigger wires. I now have to attach trigger wires. So let me grab a couple of them and show you what they look like. Here's our trigger wires. They're made of stainless steel, so they're rot resistant. They're also a springy metal with a wire loop on the end. So I can kind of bend them straight. Not that it matters too much. That's the trigger wire one, and it takes two of these. Now what I have to do, I have to bend this into a loop, and then I have to stick the trigger wire on the studs without setting the trap off. Now I have a lot of practice doing this, but the first few times I've done this, I always set the trap off and I got to reset. Now you can put the trigger wires on before you set the doors and have the doors propped open. Makes it easy. Now the trap's set. Now you might be wondering, why do these wires pop off? Well, that's a very simple answer. When the animal's in the cage, he wants to get out, and he is going to beat the snot out of this cage. And the older design of these traps had fixed wires, and they would break them off, and then every time they broke them off, you had to fix it. So with these wires like this, they are a breakaway design, and so when the animal's caught, they pop these wires off. They do not break off inside the trap. You just have to locate them because they usually fall out of the trap. So this trap has a lot of steps to get set, and it's expensive, but you know what? It's really effective. That triggering mechanism is very good at catching critters. The power doors help push them into the cage. These traps can be used in any orientation you can possibly think of, and they'll still catch critters. I've used them vertically, upside down, sideways, and they'll work. This trap will not work upside down. You know, you can set it like this, but that door or the pan will not, work upside down. And the door, it won't close upside down. These will close upside down. They will snap shut because they're powered doors. Here, I'll show you. Trap set is upside down. Watch. And it's a good solid trap that I can stand on and beat the snot out of, and it just keeps on working. Now you might have noticed earlier I pulled this clump of grass out of the back of the trap. You might wonder what that's for. I hide my bait in there. See, these animals, they're not visual like us. They go by sense of smell. You might also wonder or notice that my traps are filthy. There's dirt in here. This trap is loaded with poop in the back. That trap is loaded with dirt, poo in the back. You might be wondering, well, don't you want to clean your traps? And the truth is, no, I don't want to clean them. These animals like things that smell familiar. Groundhogs like to smell other groundhogs. Raccoons like to smell other raccoons. So my groundhog traps I don't clean because I want them to smell like the other groundhogs. It makes them comfortable when they're around the traps. It also makes them curious. They're like, hey, I don't recognize this groundhog smell. I'm going to go check it out. And I don't need bait for them to go in there. Kind of the same deal with the raccoon traps. It smells like raccoon. It must be something interesting to check out. They go into the trap to check out the smell. You know, dogs got to go sniff each other's rear ends. Raccoons, groundhogs, and skunks and all of them are the same way. So I don't clean my trap. And because they use their nose to locate things, I will hide my bait in the clump of grass in the back of the trap. And then the animal, they know the bait's in there, they can smell it, but they can't see it. So what they'll do is they'll be pawing around in the back of the trap, not really paying attention to the triggering mechanism, and they will inadvertently hit it. And I use the grass typically in these traps that have the treadles. So throw it back there, put the bait underneath of it. They're pawing around in the grass trying to find the bait, and they step on the treadle inadvertently and get caught. So that's just kind of how these traps work. And I have several other types of traps that we use, but these are some of my most common. They're effective, and I catch a lot of animals with them. If you ever have any questions about how a cage works, let us know. And sometimes we modify these traps to make them even better. So when you buy a cage at the store, oftentimes you'll have to modify it just a little bit to make it more effective. I don't know if you noticed, but in this cage, I got these things here. I hang my bait in the back. I got this metal rod going across the middle of the cage. That's to get the animal to squeeze under or step over, which increases my catches. Just a couple little modifications to help get the animal in there. My cages are all beat up and dirty because they get used a lot. And that is a testament to their ruggedness. I mean, this one has been dropped. Some of the wires missing. The rod's a little bent, but it keeps on working. This trick cage here is heavy duty. I can step on it. I can bounce on it. It does not bend. That cage, it'll bend. That cage, it'll bend. But these are heavy duty traps. So, that's a little introduction to how these traps work and their effectiveness and shortcomings and advantages. Thank you.